Sunday. Happy Sunday. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B. And I got my guy Shane in the building. How's it going, Shane?
It's going real good. Preseason is done. The light work is over, and we're getting ready to start some real football. And what we saw yesterday from the game was everyone was talking about, like, obviously the big talk was around the quarterback position, the incoming of Trey Lance, the outgoing of Will Greer, who put up, by the way, one of the best games we've seen from him regular season or preseason in his career, and the play calling from Dak. And the quarterback position is a constant thing that's talked about among Cowboys and Cowboys fans. You know this, positively and negatively. And so I just know that come tomorrow and throughout the week, I'm sure the media is going to be very respectful of the Trey Lance trade and what it means for Dak Prescott, and they'll understand that this has nothing to do with his job long term, right? We expect that. We expect that.
Yeah. When I seen that trade happen, it was just kind of confused. It was like,
Sure.
we're trading for a backup quarterback that couldn't even be the second string quarterback, and we traded for a fourth round. Then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, this could be a guy just in case if Dak gets hurt. He kind of got a similar quarterback that kind of has similar traits, but he's kind of one of those project players.
Yeah.
Who didn't play a lot of games in his career at North Dakota State. If I got the numbers right, the most games he played was 12 games in 2019, because in 2020 was a COVID year, and they really only played one game. And before that, he was the backup quarterback for Easton Sticks. So going into the draft, he was kind of one of those developmental guys that had potential to be something, but it just didn't pan out in the 49ers. But in my case, I think he's a good QB2 when it comes to being on the Cowboys.
Well, right now he's going to be QB3 because they gave Rush the extension. Everyone's talking about, we need to keep Will Greer. I put out kind of like a joke tweet last night, and I think you saw it. We're like, okay, follow me here. What if the Cowboys kept all four quarterbacks and you could trade? And the reality is you could do that, but they ain't going to do that. That was not a serious tweet. But anyone that thought that was that was not serious, that was just a joke. You could do that, and you could probably if you wanted to flip one of those guys for a backup linebacker or offensive lineman, whatever it is. The cool thing is over the next couple of days, we're going to see some guys get moved into the practice squad. We'll see some vets and some other upside rookies that the Cowboys scouted that didn't land with them maybe have a second chance with them. But that happens every year. So let's let the waiver wire do its thing. But, I mean, you and I already kind of knew coming into the preseason, 35 to 38 jobs were pretty much secure.
Yeah.
Everybody else was kind of fighting for those last few jobs and certain positions, and it also depends on where they can find room for other ones. And once we talk about it today, because you're not going to do the actual roster breakdown, we're gonna decide which one we like best, because we're both going to be wrong. We both know we're both going to be wrong. There's gonna be a surprise cuts. There's gonna be a surprise keeps. I can't believe they kept him. It happens every year, so I ain't stressing it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You may get a good chunk of them right, but there's going to be some player okay, they're going to cut him. But then a couple of days later, they're going to get rid of that person and bring in another player. That's just how Dallas Cowboys set up their first 53-man roster. That's not the set point. Like you were saying, waiver wire. There's going to be guys that are not on this team right now that are going to be on this team when it comes to the practice squad and the 53.
Yes.
So I got my little 53-man roster. Then, like you were saying, we're gonna go through it and everything. But let me get that screen going.
Hold on. Oh, we gotta show our sponsors some love. You know the deal.
Oh yeah, I forgot. My apologies to our sponsors. That is my bad right there. Let me get. We gotta show love to our What a Clean Solution. I jumped the gun. I'll be honest with y'all.
You're excited? It's okay.
Yeah, I really am, to be honest with you. So. You need to get your carpets clean, couches, tile, and grout, and moving in or moving out. You need to get that place to look brand new. Call What a Clean Solution, a family-owned mobile cleaning service that can clean everything from small carpet to even making your car or your truck look brand new. Give them a call at 210-790-1410 and use promo code TNT for 5% off your total clean. That promo code is TNT at 210-790, 5% off. What a Clean Solution. Shout out to them. So we got this 53-man roster projection. So I got it right here, and we're about to add it to the screen.
Let's do it.
So this is my little 53-man roster right here. QB is basically how, like we just discussed. But when it comes to running back, I know a lot of people were at 3. I went with 4. I think
Mm-hmm.
what we've seen with Lukey, he showed he's not just a run-of-the-mill type of fullback. They utilize him in the receiving game and the running game. And I think he could be a short yardage guy, and he can be like a lead block for guys like with it when it comes to the running game. That's why I had Hunter Lukey on your team on my little 53-man roster. Where'd you
You
go
know,
with the run backs?
okay, so the quarterbacks, yeah, we can just skip by the quarterbacks. I
Yeah.
agree, and they're going to keep all 3. In fact, now with the new roster rules, you can keep a third quarterback on there, and it won't affect your 53-man roster. So it's really more like a 54-man roster, but it's all like it's how they work it. But this is just the initial roster anyway, right? So in case anyone's like bites their heads off for this, so I actually went with 3 running backs. I went with Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn. I think Hunter Luke is probably a prime practice squad candidate that we think won't make it through waivers. But the problem with that I have here is that one, how many teams actually value the fullback position, and if the running back position really is valued that low, then are we really at that much risk for a guy who honestly hadn't shown much except for yesterday? Yesterday he was fantastic.
Yeah,
He was Deuce Vaughn without the speed. He was
Mhm.
he was blocking. He was running downhill. He was catching the ball. He made some catches that really you probably just let it hit the ground because they lost a couple yards on those catches. But he was impressive yesterday. He really was, and that was the Hunter Luepke that I saw on film coming in out of the draft. I just think that I think eventually they would elevate him. Initially, though, I don't have him making the roster right away.
Okay, so you kind of could see the potential of him might making the roster eventually.
He's gonna play this year. I think there's gonna be a point where whether it's injuries or maybe just to get through that initial waiver wire thing, they're gonna agree to some injury settlements. We'll get to that down the line, but eventually Lukey will be there. Just initially he won't be. I don't think.
Okay, so we're going to receivers. So I went with 6 receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the typical, what you see on the 53-man roster projects from a lot of people. Of course, Lamb. You got to have Cooks, Gallup, Tolbert. They already said he's going to be receiver 4. Turpin.
He's earned it.
Yeah, he definitely earned it. And then Turpin's in there. In these past 2 weeks, he's been just regular shooting, just regular shirt and sweats. So he's making the roster. And then Brooks, I think Brooks has really showed he could be receiver.
Brooks finally showed what we saw in camp yesterday. Brooks had his best camp yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and not to cut you off, just because when we talk about Cavante Turpin, we saw him in street clothes yesterday. That's usually a good sign they're gonna make the team.
Yeah,
and we knew that we wanted to see him and maybe even a mix of Deuce Vaughn at the return game because having both those guys back there is just deadly. I would like to see them personally go back to a 2-man return system on kickoff, but that's just me. But what we saw this year is kind of an elevation of his game as a receiver. And Jalen Brooks, who was one of the talks of training camp, he didn't do much in the first 2 preseason games, but yesterday he really showed what I guess you want to call it the potential, or showed who he was on the practice field in the game. Because some guys are really good practice players, they just can't put it together when it matters. Some guys can't do anything in practice, but when it comes to game time, they show up. So. And I've been speaking nonstop that the Cowboys are going to keep 7 receivers, but when I actually went down to my roster, I was like, okay, if they keep 7 receivers, is it Dennis Houston? Is it Simi Fehoko? And the reality is that there's no 7th receiver that they can really justify keeping right now because they need depth other places. So I actually agree with you 100%. I got Lamb, Cooks, Gallup, Tolbert, Turpin, and Brooks as the 6 receivers. I think Dennis Houston, in my opinion, would have been that 7th guy because I think he had a better camp and better preseason than Simi Fehoko. That's my opinion. I think Dennis Houston got better, but I think he's still a practice squad candidate with what's going on right now.
Yeah, you didn't really see Simi play until really yesterday, where he was showing consistency that game, but other games he was dropping the ball, kind of like what we've seen in camp.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know a lot of people love Drummond, but Drummond didn't show until last week.
And Drummond did look good.
Yeah, he did. I'm like, you kind of hope, like, can he squeeze into the practice squad without somebody picking him up? And he
he probably can. The thing I heard Drummond, remember last year, he actually got hurt before camp, and I really liked him coming out of Ole Miss. He was their deep threat, that flexible YZ receiver who could play deep as well as play inside. He gets hurt. He didn't really get a shot in the preseason, and then this year he already had a lot of he had like huge odds against him anyways because the Cowboys finally invested like well in the receiving position in terms of getting both Brandon Cooks. They drafted Jalen Brooks. They got a lot of competition at the receiver position, but Drummond I think is still a ways away from competing for a roster spot. But I'll give him credit; he did look good. But if they can get him on the practice squad, of all the practice squad receivers they can bring back, if not other than Dennis Houston, I think Drummond would be the next best guy.
So now we're getting into tight ends. So I stick with the three Big Ten guys. You know, you got to have Jake Ferguson, Shoemaker. He actually showed that he was a receiver out there yesterday. He's not just the blocking tight end. So he's trying to make a doubters into believers yesterday with that. Hendershot, he's kind of that big. He's that big slot. That's what I see Hendershot is. He improved a little bit on the blocking, but he's the receiving type of tight end. Those are my three tight ends. Did you go with four?
So you didn't have McKeon in there?
No, I didn't have McKeon. This is how I was thinking. I was thinking between Hunter Luepke and McKeon. Those were like the two, but I was just kind of going more with the guy that brings more versatility to the offense because I see McKeon. He's just a blocking tight end, and he does play special teams. Those are like his two things. But when it comes to Luepke, he could play a lot. He's a Swiss Army knife to the offense.
So a couple things. One, all four of those tight ends are Big Ten tight ends. So when you said Big Ten, they all came from the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Number two, I kept all four because yesterday I saw exactly where I thought McKeon could thrive. They play him at fullback. They play him at fullback in front of Hunter Luepke, and I thought that if you have guys like Ferguson, Hendershot, and Schoonmaker, who are all probably going to get preferred snaps as receiving threats, then you should have someone who can block, like you said. With McKeon, but it also has a little bit of burst out there. I think McKeon actually has some upside as a fullback, and I think one thing you don't really factor into these guys is when you add that last receiver, that last tight end, that last running back. I've been telling you, can you play special teams? And Sean McKeon, his entire career has been a very good special teams, or at least a very effective special teams player. So unless like he had gotten hurt, or unless John Stevens hadn't gotten hurt and just outplayed him from a tight end standpoint. McKeon was always going to make this roster. I never thought his job was all that much in doubt until Steven started to push him a little bit.
Yeah.
But after he went down, and I saw them play McKeon at fullback, and McKeon looked pretty good at fullback. He really did. He was forceful. You remember early in the game yesterday when they had Luepke at the tailback, McKeon at fullback, and they ran a power eye to the off the right guard by Tyler Bass, and he got like an 8-yard run. He was the lead blocker behind him, and he actually was able to get some forced push. He pushed off the tackle into the linebacker. I can't remember the guy's name. So if you're watching, I'm sorry. That showed that, okay, like they know that they're deep at tight end, but really one of their tight ends who they want to use more on the field in certain ways, Sean McKeon, he's got upside at fullback. And I think if they were going to use any tight end at fullback, it'd be him. So I have all four making it.
Okay. Yeah, I was
ain't gonna argue that.
I was just stuck. I'm stuck between those, but I think Luepke just brings more to the offense. I get what you're saying that Sean McKeon, he's a good lead. He's shown that he could be a potential that H-back type of he's a blocker.
I wouldn't say H-back. I would say pure fullback. I think he has. I think he could do H-back, but I think he has more upside as a fullback.
So you kind of see him more like well, not really switching. You just put him in there as a fullback.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you can do him at H-back, especially if you want to run like a heavy set or a jumbo package. I saw what I've been wanting to see him play fullback for years because I think he of all their tight ends, I think he's easily the best blocker. I think while Ferguson is the best overall tight end in terms of receiving and blocking, I think McKeon's a better blocker than him right now. Ferguson's just the best tight end they got. But I want them to keep him as that 1A tight end. Because a lot of times the tight end are usually either an A or an F, depending on how the playbook looks. The coaches use letters. That you've worked with a lot of high school guys. You know how the playbook looks.
Yeah.
And so with McKeon, I wanted to see him play more in the backfield because I think as a blocker he offers a lot of upside there. So I had 4 tight ends, no issue.
Okay. So now we're getting into the offensive line.
Hog mollies.
Yes, absolutely. So I went with the with 4 tackles. A couple of them have position flex. So I did go with Smith, Steele, Richards. Who had a really good preseason.
Great
overall, playing left tackle and left guard.
Mm-hmm.
And with Lesko, I'm still iffy on him, but I think they're going to stick with him until further notice.
Yeah.
And then with guard, I went with Tyler Smith. I went with Zach Martin. TJ Bass, another guy who had a really good preseason. I think he's definitely got to make the squad. And then when I went with center, I went with Biotish and Farniak. Due to the fact Farniak can bring versatility as a guard in the center. Not the greatest one. I know I liked Hoffman, but Hoffman doesn't bring that position flex that Farniak brings.
Right. Hoffman is a good center. He can't play the entire interior.
Yeah. Because, like we went last week, last episode, we were talking about, like, when it comes to injury, somebody's got to step up. And Hoffman really he didn't have the best job at playing guard. But when a center, he does a solid job.
Yeah.
But you got to have that position flex.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. So my contingency on this would have been Josh Ball, only because I thought he was bad at tackle. He got his butt kicked yesterday. He got hurt yesterday when he was playing so bad. I put that clip up there on Twitter. I'm unashamed. I've been very vocal about my disgust for Josh Ball, which is why I had to be very I try and be as objective as possible. You know that. Even when it comes to about the Cowboys, I try and be as fair as possible.
Understood.
I think because he got injured, they're expecting at least a 2-month absence from him. He could probably be a pup list candidate, where they put him on IR to start the season, so he won't factor against the roster. They could also potentially put him on the initial roster for 24 hours and then put him on IR designated to return. That would mean also that you would probably risk losing somebody to the waiver wire, however they want to do that. I would rather put him on IR now, but it would also mean that he wouldn't have the opportunity to come back sooner than he would later. That's the thing. Is how much do you think you'll need him in a certain amount of time? And what the Cowboys' offensive line questions as they are, and you talked about versatility is huge. You were absolutely right. Versatility is going to be huge to these guys. And Josh Ball, to me, doesn't have versatility. He played his best at right guard. That was the one time against Seattle last week at right guard. Regular season or preseason, by far his best game. I still thought TJ Bass, the undrafted free agent from Oregon, the guy that I have been clamoring for months. He was one of my guys. I don't know if I talked him into you or you already liked him. I can't remember, but he was one of the guys I was like, watch out for this guy. He's really, really good. He was not only powerful in the run game, he held his baseball in pass protection a little better than I expected, at least coming out as an undrafted rookie. I still think Farniak would be the if one of the interior guys were to go down, Farniak more than likely would be the fill-in unless it was right guard, because Farniak's primarily played left guard and center. But I love TJ Bass. I don't want to release him to the waiver wire. That 5th round pick we used on Austin Richards, I could have easily seen go to TJ Bass. Austin Richards, though, has been awesome. Richards this entire preseason. He's easily been their best overall offensive lineman. Even though Pro Football Focus grade wise says TJ Bass not only didn't allow a sack, he didn't allow pressure this preseason. So take PFF for whatever you take it for it's worth. If you don't allow any pressures as an undrafted rookie, that's still saying something. Even if you're going up against guys who are going to be practice squad, rotational, guys who are fighting to make the team, that's still something to build off of. So I also had 9. Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Tyler Biotish, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, Austin Richards, Matt Farniak, TJ Bass, and Matt Waletzko. We'll see about the Waletzko's injury. I also think potentially before the season starts, we could see them add or trade for a veteran offensive lineman just to shore up that right side spot, because I think Matt Waletzko is better served on the left side than he is the right. But Austin Richards right now is the better option at left tackle. So however they want to designate Waletzko's injury, a lot of times you can stash someone on IR. The teams do it all the time. So I would also watch out for Chuma Edoga. I think they could probably give him a little under the table type deal. He is a vet. Remember, once you're past your rookie deal and you're exposed to the waiver wire, you can pick where you want to go to. So if they wanted to make that kind of deal with Edoga, I'd be fine with that too, because I still think Edoga gives you veteran depth. And I'd be fine with that also. But at least initially, I had those 9.
Yeah, I don't know what's the full injury history like on Edoga. I meant the report on Edoga. I know he had the hyperextended knee. Is
He
he?
did. He did. I don't. He hadn't been practicing really since he went down a few weeks ago. But as of right now, they don't have an estimated return date.
Oh, okay.
I would assume though that they probably want to keep him off that anyway. I personally hyperextended my knee when I was in high school. I was out for almost a month. I was out for 3 weeks, and it hurt like hell because you feel like your knee moves in and out of place almost simultaneously, and you can't put any pressure on it, and it swells up to the size of a grapefruit. So once the fluid comes out from the knee and you're able to bend it better, then and you're able to put pressure on it, that's when you know you're okay. But I think just because they don't want to lose any of these like really promising younger guys, they could probably agree to a vet deal. Those vet deals, like they've done before with CJ Goodwin, who I think they'll probably do that again this year. Those vet deals a lot of times can make the roster moves a little bit easier because they say, "Hey, we're going to release you for a day, but it's really just so we can clear up some stuff on the roster. We're going to bring you back." They did that. They did that last year actually with Will Greer, and Will Greer was like, "Yeah, just bring me back to the practice squad." Like and it was and that's how a lot of teams like build their depth. So I think that's probably what they'll do again with Chuma Doga.
Yeah, I could see that, and and he when it comes to that you could after the injury and stuff like that, you kind of could do that leverage where you could take the veteran minimum vet vet contract like you're doing what they did with Will Greer. But
Right.
now we're getting into the defense. So I went I, Parson. You know Parson. He's linebacker and edge, so he's that position flex. So I put him at linebacker, but on my edges I got D-Law, Sam Williams, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, and I have Isaiah Land. Isaiah Land had a really good preseason. I, I don't have the stats on him, but when you've seen him play, you can see he was a force as a run stopper and as a pass rusher. He kind
Mm-hmm.
of showed that flex because when he was coming out of out of FAMU, he was like you seen a lot of predominantly as a pass rusher, but he showed that he could be a run stopper as well. And I and when it comes to that type of player, you got to keep him because a player like that is not going to make the practice squad. Some teams are going to swoop him up. I know he's not the biggest guy, but that's what the all season works when it comes to that. But you don't want to have a player like that walk out of your building and then some other team utilize him. You're like, dang, I shouldn't have let him go. So I went with 5 on that.
Yeah, I see that. I see that you. I just realized that you designated Junior Fahoko as a defensive tackle. I think that's why I was like, "Where is he at?" Okay, you designated him as a tackle because I mean Fajoko's shaped like a tackle. You know he's listed as an edge, and it gets kind of
Yeah,
confusing because you and I talked about this all the time.
yeah,
Most of their best defensive players can play more than one spot. There is no player on this defense except for Malik Hooker and Jonathan Hankins who won't not be playing multiple spots. Hankins will exclusively be a nose tackle. Malik Hooker will exclusively be the deep free safety. Everybody else, well, I mean, never mind. I guess the outside cornerbacks also, like Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore, they'll be the outside guys. But
yeah.
everybody else within that box is going to be playing multiple spots. So I guess I'll say I'm just telling you, I kept 5 defensive ends, and I mean, just based on how I defined them. And that was Tank Lawrence, Sam Williams, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, Junior Fahoko. I think I even think even if Sam Williams gets suspended for a game or fined or whatever it is, like I have so much confidence in their pass rush. That's their best unit. Their pass rush is so deep and so effective. They can rush the passer with their safety. They can. I have if he has to serve a game suspension, I'd rather them do it earlier in the season.
Yeah, just get
I
over with.
get that over with. I'm excited for this pass rush. I really am, and I don't even think I need to explain that much why I think that. But like those are the 5 defensive ends that I kept. Uh, you listed Micah, I believe, as a linebacker, right? You
Yeah,
did. Okay. Okay. The thing with stuff about this with Isaiah Land is because 1, what do you designate him as, and 2, can you risk putting him on the practice squad? I designated Isaiah Land as a linebacker because that's what they primarily practice him as. But you saw that versatility as a pass rusher, and he was also pretty damn good at it. I do wonder though if they would rather risk losing him on the waiver wire than maybe a player of a more pressing need at depth, just because. I mean, and I'll get to this when we talk about linebackers, but Isaiah Land was a player that I definitely had on my radar.
So we went into the edge. So what about when it comes to your defensive tackles? I know you have Filko at the edge. Did
Uh-huh.
you go with a 4 or 5 when it comes to defensive tackle?
That was tough for me just because like I really wanted to put either Quinn Bohanna or Gallimore there, but like neither one of them were like really all that consistent. Plus, I don't know if you can justify keeping 3 nose tackles. If you keep Quentin Bohanna, that means you're keeping more nose tackles than pure 3 techniques. Granted, you have players like DeMarcus Lawrence and Sam Williams who can cut inside and play 3 tech,
Yeah.
but typically, but the problem is Quentin Bohanna and Neville Gallimore, neither one of them really like have done enough to where like you can justify a roster spot for that depth. So for defensive tackles, I had Osa Digizua, Mozzie Smith, Jonathan Hankins, and Chauncey Golston as the only pure DTs that I kept. But it's okay because, like I said, you're going to have guys playing multiple spots on the outside that could also kick inside. So I'm okay going low at DT because really you have 9 pure defensive linemen who can play multiple positions, and I'm okay with that. I was fine going low at DT because I'm going to use that depth later on. You'll see here in a sec.
Okay. So now we're getting into the linebackers. I know some people are coming in and saying, "Why do you got Parsons at linebacker?" Well, I'm just going kind of basic on what you see, like when it comes to like those unofficial depth charts. Michael Parsons is a chess piece. He'll play a little bit over here and over there because he's that type of player. But I just have my linebacker. So I went with four linebackers on here. LVE, of course, Damone Clark, who had a really good preseason, and then Harper, who showed out after the injury to Overshown. I think Harper is definitely could be that backup middle linebacker, showing he has some leadership out there as well, and he can shed blockers like nobody's business, especially in this preseason. So that's my 4. So what'd you go on linebacker?
Okay, so I also designate Mike as a linebacker. Again, it doesn't matter. It does not matter what position you put these players in. It matters what they do. Okay, if anyone that freaks out, you and I talked about this. It doesn't matter. But I had Micah, Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Clark, Devin Harper, and I also didn't keep Jabril Cox, but I did keep Isaiah Land. I designated Isaiah Land as an outside linebacker. I don't want to admit this, but Jabril Cox, I was so high on him in the draft. I had a second round grade on Jabril Cox, but he has been outplayed and outperformed by other guys. And what was even worse is that DeMarvion Overshown doesn't get hurt. This makes it a lot more complicated. But when he got hurt, really that should have been, and I hate to say it like this, Jabril Cox should have been like, oh, I can relax a little more. Like, I'm going to be fine. But the reality is, like, he was outplayed by Devin Harper. He was outplayed by Isaiah Land. Damone Clark looks like a stud. Every time he was out there on the field, he was always around the ball. He had that closing speed we saw when he was down in the bayou. So I had them keep 5 linebackers. The reality is like only Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Clark, and Devin Harper are purely going to be the inside guys. Whereas Isaiah Land might not even be active a whole lot. He might be inactive for game days. If he does play, he'll primarily be a rotational guy, but more of a special teams guy to start his career anyway. Micah Parsons, we know, is going to be the team's best Roman edge rusher. He'll play some inside. He might even play a little bit on the nickel. I don't want them to just purely play him as edge. I hate when people say just play him as edge rusher. I understand that the defensive end, the pass rusher, is the most important position on the defense. I understand that. But when you have a guy like Micah Parsons that can do so much, open up so much on the field for you on defense, why would you pigeonhole them to one thing? I mean, if that was the case, then Jaron Curse should only be a box safety just because he's so good at it. But that would also mean that like he also couldn't play down. He couldn't play down the line of scrimmage. Couldn't play on the nickel. He would just be a box safety, and that would also mean that Donovan Wilson shouldn't be rushing the passer. If we kept guys purely at one spot and they're only supposed to do what they traditionally do, that pigeonholes them. Donovan Wilson was one of the team's best pass rusher as a safety. Okay, traditional defenses don't do that. They would do it like once a while. Once a while, the safety blitz is a trick play, right? That was like a disguised look. That was something they did a lot. And so if we only kept Micah Parsons as a defensive end, then that's just going to keep one of your best players in one spot, and that's not what makes him so special. So I had 5 linebackers, and one of them wasn't Jabril Cox, which breaks my heart.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Jabril Cox, and I was thinking he was going to be the next starter on our team, and it just didn't pan out. And they already brought up that Michael Gilkin reported about it, like Kelvin Joseph and Jabril Cox are those guys that are potentially going to be traded. But like you were saying about when it comes to this defense, we got so much depth on this defense. You can put players at different spots on this defense, and they show that they can do that. Like you were saying, Michael Parsons not just an edge; he could play a linebacker, but you have depth. You could have another guy at edge, and you have Michael Parsons at linebacker or nickel, and then you can go even deeper into the defense. There's guys that could play other versatility spots, but I don't want to jump the gun any more than that. But we're gonna get into corners, so that was like the toughest situation with me. But I have Diggs, Gilmore, Bland, of course, and I actually got Lewis because I hear he's gonna be on the public list soon. And Scott, he's
Yeah,
at the top.
he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, and then you got Scott, who has had a good camp in the preseason, had his ups and downs, but he's a rookie. And CJ Goodwin, I could have just put him as a specialist because you're not gonna see him at corner.
No, you won't.
Soon. But that's
okay.
who
I'm just curious, just based on your thinking. So, like, if I had to guess that last true cornerback spot, forget C.J. Goodwin for a second.
Yeah.
Between Eric Scott, someone like Nashawn Wright, Kelvin Joseph, what to you gave Eric Scott the nod? What did you see that said, okay, he deserves that last spot?
Like when it came to Nashawn, I really liked how he was playing, but then that foot injury kind of like, I can't say that he's going to be on the team. But between Kelvin Joseph and Scott, I think Scott gets more the nod because the potential to he's being a rookie, and when it comes to Kelvin Joseph, he kind of been on that last limb. He had a really good camp, but now you're hearing that they're thinking about trading him. I was like, dang, because before I had him as in that 53-man roster, but just how they're high on Eric Scott, I just have him over Kelvin Joseph, and then you got Lewis coming back, and we talked about Lewis eventually might be traded, but they're kind of going the other way, going with Kelvin Joseph might be on the trade block. But I actually like what Kelvin Joseph does, but it's just the number game with me, and I think Eric Scott's going to be the guy that's going to make the team.
Okay, so Diggs and Gilmore and Bland are the obvious ones.
Okay, those obvious.
Jordan Lewis, I would watch out for as either being like a trade candidate himself, just because I don't know if they want either him or Deron Bland to get the majority of the snaps. Because Jordan Lewis, if you trade him, saves you $5 million on your cap space.
Yeah.
But he also has been a consistent starter for you really since 2017. And consistent starters at cornerback are hard to come by. They just are. They're hard. It's hard to find them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Deron Bland shows more upside, even though Jordan Lewis is more of a playmaker. I don't have CJ Goodwin making the roster to start off with. I think to him, he's going to be one of those guys I talked about with Chuma Edoga, one of those vets that they can release for initial cuts, and then if they want to, have an under-the-table type deal, like, hey, we're going to release you right now, but we're going to bring you back. Don't worry. It's in the works.
Yeah.
So I think if CJ Goodwin does come back, it'll be that way. I don't see him making the roster initially. But the final cornerback spot, to me, it came down to Kelvin Joseph and Eric Scott, just because Eric Scott had a better camp. Kelvin Joseph a little better in the preseason. Kelvin Joseph yesterday had some struggles, but he also had some times where you're like, okay, I see a little bit more of the guy I want to see. They used him as like that sort of like safety linebacker hybrid that we see from Donovan Wilson. You saw him play a little bit more towards the edge. He was rushing the passer in a few plays.
Yeah, he was.
He seems to have found a niche for himself as a nickel corner. With Eric Scott, they saw a guy who has much better ball skills. He was making a lot more plays on the ball, but he also has that knack of like either reacting too late to the receiver whenever the quarterback releases the ball and the receiver cuts inside or like makes his move on the route, and he reacts a little bit too late. But Dan Quinn and the coach staff have been high on him. They've praised him a lot because he's been one of those guys, one of those talks of camp. For me, it came down to if I'm going to go, and I only went with 5 corners just for perspective, and I normally I would go more, but again, like the CJ Goodwin thing is going to work itself out. But I think with the final cornerback spot, I actually gave the nod to Kelvin Joseph just because even though Eric Scott gives you upside, I think he's the guy more likely between the two of them that if you want to stash in the practice squad, could make it. I think Eric Scott would be more likely to make it through waivers. Kelvin Joseph, I think they finally found something for him. He wasn't a bad special teams player for you for the majority of the year, but he did have his moments where you're left scratching your head.
Yeah.
And granted, a second-round pick shouldn't be just a pure special teams player. But he's found a role, it looks like, as a nickel type player. So I'm okay giving him this chance, so to speak, because I saw growth from year 2 to year 3. That if I invest in a second round pick, I'm more willing to give the credence that way than I am towards a 6th round rookie. That's just me. So I went with Joseph as the 5th cornerback.
Good. So you went okay, the typical 3, and then
Diggs, Gilmore, Lewis, Bland, and Joseph.
Okay.
I went with 5.
Okay, and then you're saying Scott's gonna be on the practice squad?
At least a start. I think he might be an elevated guy, but I'm okay going 5 cornerbacks just because there's going to be a guy in the next group that will give you a little bit of depth at cornerback anyway. But we'll get to them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got the 3-headed monster when it comes to safety. You got Hooker, you got Donovan Wilson, and then you got Jaron Kearse.
Yep.
And then you get into like a Izzy. He's a guy that could play free safety and play big nickel as well.
That's the guy.
Yeah, that's one. I think a lot of people may have forgot that. Like you can go back to that Buccaneers game that he's shown that he has that potential to play the big nickel and free.
I tweeted out he played 4 positions in the preseason. He played deep safety, he played box safety, he played joker where Jaron Kearse is, and he played nickel corner. He is your unofficial 6th corner. I'm okay. And we talked about it. Versatility is huge on this defense. He gives you depth at cornerback while still being a safety. You got to keep him.
Yeah. And then and now here comes more versatility with Marquise Bell, who they say can play a little bit of a linebacker.
He's going to be that guy.
Yeah, he's a run stopper too. And then the next one, who I'd say he's the preseason defensive MVP.
He's the surprise.
Yeah, I don't. There was nobody before preseason was thinking Wanye Thomas is going to make the team, but he has shown that he could play a little bit of corner, play safety, and he can make plays too.
He can throw.
He can hit. And that's one thing, because everybody's probably like, okay, he probably make the practice squad or something like that. But he's showing like, hey, they may have to force themselves trying to put him in on that 53-man roster. It may be, you may see him move going back and forth to the practice squad, but it's kind of that risk because they got film like, okay, this guy got potential.
Yeah.
And I got him, I have him locked on the 53-man roster.
Oh, yeah. He's earned it.
Yeah.
I got the same 6 guys, and we talked about their big 3-headed monster: Malik Hooker, Jaron Kearse, Donovan Wilson. If you go against the NFL's like your first 3 safeties, I don't think there's a safety room more deep than the Cowboys. And I would like to hear other teams who think they have a better 1 through 5 or 6 safeties who I think are better. But you might have one individual safety who's better than these guys, but you won't find a group better. Marquise Bell is going to play a linebacker this year. He's going to play a lot of Jaron Kearse's role. He's going to do a lot of special teams. He's going to be your linebacker depth if they choose to go light at linebacker itself. With Kwamu, if they decide to go light at cornerback with only 5, he's going to be your 6th corner, and that's fine. Wanye Thomas is so fun because he can play free safety like Hooker, but he'll also play down in the box like a linebacker, like a Jaron Kearse. The only safety amongst these guys that plays just safety is Malik Hooker. The other guys play multiple spots, do multiple things. And with Wanya Thomas, you're right. I had their last 5 last year making the team, and then anybody else would have just been gravy. Wanya Thomas has been too good to leave off the roster. He's earned the spot. He has been the surprise of the preseason by far. It's Wanya Thomas, and he's earned it. He's earned that last spot. I can't describe it any better than that. He's earned that last spot. There's no, whatever they've asked him to do, whether it's been playing as like a nickel corner, a deep safety box, he's done it all.
Yeah, he's a guy that is like, I'm willing to do anything to make this team, and he's earned it. Like, you got to put him on this roster because some teams are going to swipe him up for sure. And to think about it, that's a few years ago we were trying to figure out, can we at least get one safety? Now we got a plethora of safeties and corners to choose from.
Oh, yeah.
I
love it. They've been ignoring secondary for years. You're right.
Yeah. because we would like, okay, maybe they'll go in the first round with one. They're like, nah, we'll pick up some guy and he could play safety. But now
We'll
it's like,
find a fourth round cornerback who can play nickel, and then maybe he can play safety.
yeah, now it's like they're just instantly just like any guy, like right, like dang, we got another guy that could play some multiple.
I give so much credit to Will McClay in the front office. I give so much credit to Mike McCarthy. I got to give a ton of credit also to not only Dan Quinn but his positional coaches, Al Harris, the secondary coach, Aiden Dirty, the defensive line coach, has made the Cowboys maybe the best combination of pass rush and pass defense in the NFL.
Yeah, they did. Like I can't think of any team that has this much versatility like we do.
I mean, I'm sure there's probably teams out there that have like a good solid unit of it, but like in terms of just like the not only like the starters, but yeah, the depth behind them and the roles that they all can play, you'd be hard pressed to find.
Yeah.
And then we got the last three spots. Of course, they're gonna go the special teams guys.
Yeah,
but you know what's crazy? I think Trent Sieg, even though he's gonna be the long snapper, he's been fine. He can be those guys they release initially. Also, give him one of those veteran like under the table type deals. Like, hey, we're gonna release you, but you're gonna come right back. I could see him, Edoga, Goodwin. I'm trying to think of like another veteran who would make sense that they could give one of those little like, hey, like under the table type releases just to bring him back. Would they do it to Cooper Rush? I don't think so.
Nah,
I mean, maybe they could do that to Dante Fowler because he definitely qualifies for that. But I mean, Trent Sieg is going to be the long snapper. I just think that they have those veterans on their team that if they wanted to, they could do that. It would open up the ability to bring other guys in. You know, it's all a numbers game. But I mean, should anybody be surprised who the final three special teams players are?
Nah, I don't think anybody's surprised. Like Angers, of course, and then Aubrey, who hit a 59-yarder, missed one, but he made one, so he redeemed himself on there. So you got to like. So right now, he's our kicker. I
have confidence in Ryan Anger as the punter. He's had his best years as a punter with the Cowboys. Do you have confidence in the USFL guy, Mr. Brandon Aubrey? Do you have like if you ask him to kick, are you having faith in him from week one going forward?
As of right now, I just see him as that mid-tier kicker, and I'm like,
That's not what I asked. Are you comfortable with him kicking the ball? Are you comfortable with him kicking the extra points and the field goals?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not the most comfortable with him as kicker. I would try to see. I would definitely like bring in like a couple of vets and try to do a tryout and stuff. But I know
Mason Crosby.
Mason Crosby. That's one guy I'll definitely be looking at. I know a lot of us saying Robbie Gold, but he doesn't want to do. He's not going to do kickoffs. That's the biggest knock. So I would definitely see what Mason Crosby did.
Yeah, Michael Badgley got released. I don't know if people still have faith in the money badger they used to call him. Mason Crosby played a lot of his best football under Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. Reunion? I don't know.
If he still got that same leg he did when he was with Mike McCarthy, I would say definitely would sign Mason Crosby right.
If Brandon Aubrey's going to be a guy though who's going to make these 60-yard kicks, these 50-yard kicks, but miss an extra point every game, that's just what we had in Brett Maher. That ain't going to get it done because that's inconsistency at a position of clutch that needs to be clutch, like the kicker position, ain't going to get it done. And at that point, I'm calling Mason Crosby. Yeah, I'm going to give him. I'll give him what's fair, 2-3 games.
Yeah, I'll give him 3 weeks to be nice.
3, yeah, that's more than fair because they gave him the job essentially early in the preseason before anyone played a game against Tristan Vizcaino. So you had 3 preseason games to figure it out. Now you got 3 regular season games. I feel like that's fair. You have 6 games of action to figure it out. If you show inconsistency, that's more what we got. We need somebody else because if this team is serious about making a Super Bowl run and it has the talent to do it, they have everything they need. Kicker cannot be the thing that holds them back.
Yeah. You don't want to be missing the mission opportunity to go to the playoffs or and then you miss a field goal. Like
can't do that.
Yeah, like if he met in week 3 and he's kind of showing that same like he was yesterday, I'm calling up Mason Crosby and see, hey, you still can kick? You want to play?
I can forgive. I actually forgave him for that 59-yard miss because he had the leg and he made up for it later on by making the field goal later on. Yeah. But he missed an extra point early in the preseason. That really still got under me because even though he's made every other extra point, I've had enough mediocre kickers since Dan Bailey.
Man.
I need consistency. I need someone who will hit like when I say the majority of extra points, I mean this is what I'm being dead serious about this. If you're a professional league kicker, you're allowed to miss like 2, maybe 3 extra points a year.
I agree.
That's it. And I understand they moved it back to 33-yard field goal now, but even still, you are supposed to be one of the 32 best kickers in the world. You cannot miss those. Those are extra points. Those are gimme points.
Yeah.
I need to know that you can make those when they count.
Yeah, 3 at the most in the whole season is enough. Not like if you miss one every game, but you like, I redeem myself. No, that's not gonna work because what if those extra 3 points is causing us from winning the game to losing the game? Like you need to be like, okay, you missed one in week 1, but in like week 6, like week 8 or 9, you missed another one. But you're 100% the rest of the season. There's no complaints on that. Like I understand you're gonna miss a field goal once in a while, but not like every game because you're just getting Brett Maher vibes, and we don't need that again.
No.
And we actually had a conversation on the special team. I thought it would be like a quick 3 seconds, but we went to a 5-minute conversation about it.
Well, because like I wanted to know like if you're actually comfortable having Brandon Aubrey being the kicker. I'm okay with Trent C being the long snapper. He's been in the league long enough. He has a good track record. Brian Anger's been a consistent punter. In fact, he's been actually one of the best punters since he got to Dallas. I love John Fossil. I love the way the special teams looks. The special teams hasn't looked any better than this and hasn't in a long time across all the units. Kicker is one of those positions that it could either make or break you, which is insane because some people say kickers don't matter, but they don't matter until they matter.
That's one. And then when it comes to long snapper, if you don't know his name, that means he's doing his job. Because a lot of people didn't know LP for the longest until they released him. Like I didn't know who LP was until like his last few years with the Cowboys because I looked on the roster.
Right.
But I had to show the long snappers a little love on that part. But when it comes, so we kind of had like similarities into our 53. Some of them we disagreed on, but that's fine. But
it ain't perfect.
No, like there's gonna be some players that we think not gonna make the roster and they make the 53. But we gotta have understand they're just there for some are gonna be there just for a day for tomorrow, the next day, and then Wednesday or Thursday we're adding somebody else. That's just how it is.
Yep.
Yeah, but this has definitely been a great show. We're gonna be back with another one. We're doing one on Thursday.
Right now we're aiming for Thursday, maybe Wednesday, to do the NFC East preview show that we've been talking about. I've got some hosts set up. I just need to be able to find a time and date that works for everybody. But I want to be able to go into this next season ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost here. Like we just 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about the Cowboys in Week 1, and it doesn't be further on for that. But I can't wait for the season to start. But we got a little good feel when it comes to the preseason. But now that's over with. We're just waiting to see on Tuesday who's going to be on this 53-man roster and then any other moves they got going on. But we'll definitely see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Peace.